Okay, it's the final Watto's wrap. Time to say goodbye. But we have one more rodeo. So it's with a tear and some wistfulness that we engage in the final Watto's wrap. This is going to be a professional exchange, and then after this interview, I presume whenever I text or email Watto, it'll be just, who's this?
Who's this?
Yeah,
Correct.
blocked all numbers.
Yeah.
Watto...
That is not true anymore.
Well, welcome to the final Watto's wrap.
Thanks for having me, boys. Gosh, what an IPL it's been. So many surprises, so many exciting games. Even the game last night, for that to sort of finish the way it did. Yeah, it's been a brilliant IPL to watch. Even though it was the second leg was played away from India, and for it to sort of be disjointed with it sort of being called off halfway or postponed halfway, there's been some epic games and some very big surprises as well.
Absolutely. And for those watching out there, we're going to use Watto's wrap to actually go through the game last night. So it's a bit of a merger of the morning after IPL and all that sort of gear. And what a game. Watto, so Delhi have bounced out, and to use the cliche, they've bounced out in straight sets, and it looked like they had everything this tournament. They basically led it. They've got Nortje Rabada, they had spinners galore, top order sorted out. I know you mentioned that sort of middle order player or Stoinis, but that he came back in. Ricky Ponting's making great speeches. I didn't actually see where the gap was in that side, and yet straight sets gone. I mean, did you see that coming with a trained eye?
No, I didn't see it coming, but I did see it coming last night. Like, for the big advantage for KKR was playing on that Sharjah wicket. Yeah. It's not a great wicket. The ball's turning and keeping sort of low. So that really, with the makeup of KKR's side and Narayan really stepping up as well in this second leg of the IPL, it was going to be a very difficult equation for DC to be able to get through KKR. So, but yeah, it was definitely surprising. DC have got as well a balanced side as there is. There's a couple of little question marks here and there. Like, for me, Ashwin, up until this last game, didn't perform anywhere near how he can, and which is surprising because he's, for Delhi in the previous couple of years, he's been one of their sort of star bowlers. His T20 bowling had really evolved into being incredibly good, but something was slightly missing in this IPL. Just that middle, probably that number 3 spot more than anything for Delhi, they didn't nail exactly. Obviously, they tested Stoinis last night to be able to come in at 3, which for me it was great that he came back. He's someone who is going to really balance out really round out their batting lineup. But for him to come in at 3 was a huge shock to me. I was gobsmacked when I saw him walk out to bat. Having 2 weeks off of no cricket, no match games and match practice anyway, to be able to step out on not a great wicket to bat at number 3 at a really crucial time, I thought it was very surprising. I thought he was going to slot into the number 6 role if he was required. He'd come in and power hit, which has been his strength in the IPL in particular. So that was very surprising as well, because that really just like it changes the whole dynamic and the roles that people play. And you could see by Shivas Iyer, the first ball that he faced, he was not happy. So he was not impressed. He'd been moved down to number 4. So you could see in the first few balls he faced, he was reckless. He got away with a few, but he was reckless. So just a few things like that just didn't go exactly. Yeah, it just meant that things just didn't click at the right time. But they've been so dominant, Delhi. So I was very surprised that they didn't make it through to the final, and they lost their way, which is, with the talent that they had, that's, I suppose, the beauty of the IPL. You just never know whether you're going to stay on a roll, because there's so many incredibly talented teams and incredibly talented individuals.
Interesting tournament for Rishabh Pant, especially captaining, and then Shreyas Iyer comes back in. He obviously previously captain, but they stuck with Rishabh. And then it's that last over last night, Ashwin has to defend 6, I think, and he does pretty bloody good job. Takes 2 wickets, 4 dot balls in a row, and then the 5th ball goes for 6 or whatever. But I just noticed how low he was bowling that last over, like he was trying to slide it under the stumps. I've seen someone else there before. I can't think top of my head. Was it
an Indian bowler?
Another Indian bowler, really almost like underarm,
Jadhav,
basically.
yeah,
mate,
yeah, Jadhav, Keita Jadhav.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, obviously the tactic is try to make the ball bounce as little as possible so the batters can't get underneath it. But how much do you think that Ashwin would have actually practiced that? I've never seen Ashwin bowl like that, and he's such a great bowler. But obviously his plan was, well, I need to take probably 3 wickets to win this game here, because a spinner can obviously go for 6 at any stage. But how much would Ashwin actually practice bowling from elbow height, basically?
Yeah, I've seen Ashwin bowl those balls occasionally here and there. And obviously the conditions were the ball was keeping low. It was as soon as you bowl the ball into the wicket a little bit, and if you bowl with a flatter trajectory, I can understand why he was trying to do that. The thing for me with Ashwin in this IPL, this current IPL, was he was bowling a lot of different balls. Initially, when he was playing T20 cricket, I always enjoyed facing him because he always bowled so many different balls. He bowled leggies, he bowled carom balls. He hardly bowled his conventional off spinner, which he's one of the most highly skilled off spinners has ever played. Yeah. His variations, his subtle variations of speed and flight and turn is incredible. In the last couple of years, he'd mainly been bowling his stock ball with a few variations of trajectory and speed. So now to see him start to do all these other things, which goes away from when he's at his best. So again, I'm surprised that he hasn't just sort of pulled back into bowling his stock ball and the little variations around it with the occasional sort of one ball that he bowls like a round arm or his odd carom ball. So yeah, I understand because of the way the wicket was, but it's just surprising because when he's at his best, he's not doing all those sort of crazy things.
Watto, I want to talk about a great friend of the show, Venky Iyer. So he took down Nokia Rabada in the power play. He kept it going into the middle. He can bowl. He had a run out. He bats without a lid. He has a gold chain. He has an MBA in finance. He's a film buff. He's a man of culture. The list goes on. I don't think there's any doubt that his inclusion in the second half of the IPL has taken KKR to the next level or to a new level. What's been your impression of him? He's been asked to stay back in the bio bubble for the Indian side for the T20 World Cup. So can you put into words how big a compliment that is? He's effectively jumping guys like Prithvi Shaw, Sanju Samson, Gaikwad, Agarwal, Padikkal, Shubman Gill. What do you make of Venky, of our boy Venky?
Venky, gosh, initially with the first couple of games when I saw him in his second leg of the IPL, it was more, within a couple of games he's going to get found out. Maybe he's obviously done very well. No one's really seen him before. The domestic players have probably seen him, but the overseas players probably haven't seen him. So they'll find a few chinks in his armour, but they never came. And his skill and the confidence that he has, even last night, gosh, some of the shots that he played under pressure against some of the best bowlers in the world, it's incredible confidence for a young inexperienced guy to be able to have. And yes, he was a huge catalyst for KKR to be able to continue and take off in this second leg of the IPL. They'd really been struggling in the top order. Their strike rate and their run rates in the first 6 overs wasn't great. Shubman Gill stepped up his risk taking in that first 6, which really helped. But then Venkatesh Iyer, to be able to see him, how he's just taken it to another level. He scored, I think it's around 320 runs in the second half of the IPL. For a young guy who no one had ever really, apart from in domestic cricket, no one had really heard of before. And he is taking on the best bowlers in the world, especially in Sharjah, for example. It's not a great wicket right now. And he's been scoring runs consistently at Sharjah. So it's that's the beauty of the IPL. And that's the reason why India is so strong now, in international cricket, is because of the IPL, because of the world-class quality of the tournament. These young guys are getting exposed to world-class bowlers and the trajectory is just going up. And now they just have, if Venkatesh Iyer comes into the T20 World Cup, there's a really good chance he'll come in and do well because he's been exposed to this type of cricket in the IPL. Whereas most of the other leagues around the world, yes, they are high quality, but it's not to an international standard like the IPL because of the window, all the best players are playing. So it's really cool to see a young guy like Venkatesh Iyer. And the same goes with Ruturaj Gaikwad, for example. These guys are so, gosh, the skill that these young Indians have, it's pretty crazy. Obviously they've got a big pool of players, a big talent pool, because there's so many people who play cricket over there. But it wasn't always the case when they had world-class players coming through. And now, because of the IPL in particular, they just like, it's like you shake the tree and they fall out, especially from a batting point of view.
Yeah. Nice to see Travis Head score 230 yesterday at Karen Rolton Oval, wasn't it?
God. Wouldn't you like to bat there every day? I'm not taking anything away from Travis Head, because that's an incredible effort to get 230 in a one-day game. But
it wasn't
like when they play at Hurstville Oval, when Darcy Short got 270 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Oh, I know it's a way to be able to get domestic cricket up and going. They have to play it because the bio bubbles and all the different sort of stuff with COVID. But oh my gosh, you'd love to be playing there.
Looks flat. KKR was 7th at the end of the Indian leg. I mean, they've got the hot hand. They've now played, I think it's 4 games they've played in Sharjah now, 2 in the sort of the regular round, 2 in these playoffs. And I think that's definitely helped. But they've got the hot hand, 7th into the final. I mean, this is a hell of a run. I mean, who have you got for the final, basically?
Oh, I've got CSK. Like, I know the CSK, and not just because I'm seeing CSK through and through, but going into last night's game, I've got no doubt that CSK would have been more comfortable, would have preferred to play KKR in the final in Dubai.
Yeah.
If they're playing Sharjah, no way. They'd prefer to play DC. But going into Dubai with a really good wicket, the ball doesn't turn as much, definitely CSK would have preferred to play KKR. And also because KKR have been playing a lot of their games in Sharjah recently, and there's only a quick turnaround going into Dubai. Just they have that, CSK have got that upper hand because they've been playing on that wicket a bit more consistently and have performed pretty well there. So for me, CSK, because of KKR's in there now, has got the upper hand. And also CSK will be flying high. For me, the moment there was the moment for me where CSK really has galvanised together is MS Dhoni scoring runs.
Yeah,
that for him to be able to win that game for them. Like, that would have been, yes, no one would ever say it because everyone just adores MS Dhoni. But because he hadn't been scoring the runs, the game before against the Kings 11, Punjab Kings, I always get that wrong. Punjab Kings, when I change the names. His intent coming out was very different to any time that he batted over the last 18 months. Yeah. He really came out, took on the game. He played an amazing shot over cover. Yes, he ended up getting bowled by a wrong one from Bishnoi, but his intent was so different. His intensity in his eyes was very different. And then he took that into the time when the team needed him to step up, and he certainly did. So that's going to provide even more confidence for CSK, knowing that no matter what situation they get into, someone's going to put their hand up and step up.
Yeah.
Watto, what have you learnt about playing in IPL finals? Like, we've seen guys absolutely hammer you for a bad game for RCB, where you said you blamed yourself and tried too hard, and then we've seen people build shrines to you, whether it was for hitting 117 off 57 to win the damn thing in 2018, or 80 off 59 against Mumbai with a blood-soaked knee the following year. Like, the emotional extremes must be so surreal. Like, were you able to keep it in perspective, and what's it like to be on the receiving end of people's anger or relation?
Yeah, that 2016 final was it's probably outcome-wise, results-wise, it's probably one of the worst games I've ever had. It was a complete disaster. And also the role that I was playing in RCB, the overs that I was bowling, and also where I was batting, for me to have a bad game like I did, went for over 50, Ben Cutting enjoyed what I bowled that night. Certainly enjoyed what I bowled that night. Hip high full tosses wasn't ideal. And then to be able to get out at the time that I did against the Fizz, which was a poor option at the time, that was like that broke me. That really took its toll, because I know how much it meant to the franchise, RCB, to Virat and AB. But also in finals, you want to be the player who steps up, but also doesn't lose the game or play a big part in losing the game for your team, because the fans and the supporters for that franchise are so passionate. And RCB, like all the other franchises, but RCB, they've got such a big following, primarily because of Virat and AB de Villiers as well. So that was a real, a low point in my career, which gave me more motivation when I got another opportunity. I was fortunate enough to get another opportunity in 2018 for CSK. And that's why I suppose I had this another different intensity, because I wanted to prove a point to myself that I wasn't just going to have a shocking game and ruin the chances of my team winning. So for me, it really is. You're exposed in a final in particular. You are fully exposed to the Wolves, and the biggest challenge is to be able to clear your mind. And if something doesn't go exactly right, to be able to stay on track, not allow yourself to start worrying about, well, what's the backlash going to be? Because as we saw in even a knockout game for RCB, when they got knocked over by KKR, gosh, the backlash can be out of control, and especially when you read it. So for me, like I internally, I knew that it was a bad game for RCB in 2016, but I wouldn't go. I never went onto social media to read like what people were saying. That just because if you're going to do that with people who have got they're faceless, so they don't need to have like they don't need to have a filter. Yeah. The filter just evaporates when people are on social media because they've got no recourse. So people just let fly. So the last thing you should do is actually read what's being said. So I never had any idea what was going on because I just didn't expose myself to that. But like the next generation that's come through, most of those guys read every single thing or read a lot of it, which is very it's damaging. That's gonna take its toll in a big way at some stage if it doesn't like consistently, because it's just like, you know, needles being stuck into you consistently. So my advice would be to stay away from it, especially when you know the team hasn't performed that well. There are going to be very, very passionate fans of a team or as individuals that just go very hard and go to extreme lengths to make their point.
I don't want to harp on that point, but I will ask another question. So, talk at length about it again. But, you know, is there like training that you get as a professional athlete? Because it's obviously not just cricket, although, you know, it's obviously an RCB huge franchise, and I think RCB especially with like how close they've been, and you know the impact of Virat Kohli and AB, and how big that franchise is, right? But like when people, and they're probably just 14-year-olds with a burner account, right? But when they start like messaging your family members, and it's not just India, because I've seen like Australian players, you know, get abuse from like people who are, you know, problem gamblers, basically abusing like players' wives about, you know, someone affecting their multi or whatever, you know. But like when people start messaging like family members, I mean, is there like coaching that you get as a pro athlete around how to navigate this stuff? Because I mean, it's shocking, it's abhorrent to read some of the stuff, right?
No, you don't really. The only coaching you really get is with your own personal stuff that you put out on social media. That's more so the coaching that you get is to not get yourself into trouble. Right. So that's the main thing, is be careful what you put out there, because there's so many different ways you can get tripped up, especially playing for Australia in particular. Everything that you do it's got a microscope on it. So that's more so the coaching around how to just not get yourself into trouble. There hasn't, with my experience. I'm sure it's coming in now, and it needs to, because but it's more so how the players sort of talk about their own experiences. So even something as simple as like some guys before social media came in, some guys would read the papers, like read the sports section, read what everyone says. So whereas other players would just not read a thing because they didn't want to allow anything that was the outside noise to be able to sort of come into there and maybe corrupt their mindset. So, and that sort of takes obviously another level when you talk about social media. So some guys read it and they're really happy to read it, even though that's going to take its toll at some stage. Or other guys just totally stay away from it. So there definitely needs to be like very clear coaching around it. And my perspective, yes, you use social media because it's such an incredible platform to be able to sort of get you across, because so much, especially as an Australian cricketer, you're in this bubble that you as a person and your personality doesn't really come across that often. It's coming out more. Guys are doing like YouTube channels and they're controlling their sort of to show who they are. As you see with Pat Cummins and the great stuff he's been doing, for example, Usman Khawaja. So people's personalities are finally coming out, which is an awesome thing, because normally you just get judged by you as a person by how you play on the cricket field. Yeah. People judge you as what type of person you are by when you're in competitive survival mode on the cricket field, playing, trying to push the limits to be able to win. Yeah. So that's the beautiful thing of social media, is to be able to get yourself and expose yourself as what type of person you are. But on the other side of that, you've got to stay away from any interaction with people who've going to comment, and whether they're going to message your family, and all your family members and friends they've got to be like on the same bus. They because it's going to be there. Sadly, it's going to be there. There's so much upside to social media, but the downside is certainly the trolls, and that's not for the individual cricketer. It's actually for their family and friends and that as well. So they've all got to sort of stay away and use it to the best advantage, but try and stay away from the downside to it.
Watto, change of pace, T20 World Cup coming up. Do you have any other IPL questions? Or?
Oh, no, I forgot it was on.
Yeah, me too. T20 World Cup coming up. I mean, we're sort of biting off more than we can chew with you, because we should probably just be talking about the IPL, but given it's the last one, we're just going to get as much as we can. So T20 World Cup's coming up. India's loaded with stars, too many to fit. West Indies are doing so well, they can ignore the best T20 player ever, according to CricViz, in Sunil Narayan. England are trying to unify white ball belts with experience and power across the park. And Australia have several blokes ignored in the IPL and a coach posting memes on LinkedIn. I hope that doesn't sound like a social media troll. It's just a fact. Do you think Australia will get through the group stage? And if I could just roll another question into it, who do you think should bat 3? And where should Glenn Maxwell and Matthew Wade bat?
So the Aussies' chances, I've always been concerned about Australia's T20 cricket, and even when I was playing in it, we were very disjointed. We didn't pick the same teams. The roles always changed, like quite often. We never got the selection right and the continuity of it right as well. And it continues. It's just like this evolving sort of thing that just never changes, and it's actually just the same thing over and over again. So we've always been very fortunate we've had up like a lot of top order batsmen, and we just have never been able to find the pieces to be able to fit together. So for me, that means under pressure, if you're playing against a team who's had set roles and the players have played consistently together, like it was in the last time that I played in 2016, we played against India, who hadn't changed their team for like 12 months. Whereas we going into the tournament, we changed our batting orders like left, right and centre. We changed the team non-stop. So people, when they're exposed to different situations, just don't have the skills equipped to be able to make the most of it. So I do get nervous about our T20 cricket, and it continues on. Some guys haven't performed that well in the IPL, but that's sort of irrelevant once the World Cup kicks in. Like Dave Warner I believe is going to have an incredible tournament. Yes, something's gone on at the Sunrisers for him to sort of just fall out of just being in the wrong headspace. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't really step up. But gosh, the number 3 spot, because there's so many top order batsmen that Australia has, I'm not sure. I think it seems like Mitch Marsh is going to bat 3. That's sort of my take, and sort of how, and he's done well when he's come in and batted at 3. Marcus Stoinis is going to play a really important role, I think, as a power hitter towards the sort of back end of an innings. Glenn Maxwell, his role has to be identical to what he played at RCB, because it was just, we can't keep stuffing around with Maxi. He's such an incredibly skilled player. They just need to get out of his way and allow him to be able to play with the freedom and skill that he has. So, and he's been a match winner for RCB. So they just need to create that same environment for him to be able to do his thing. So I'm a little bit concerned about our T20 cricket. Yes, we can definitely pull it together, because we've got so many world class players, from our bowlers, with Mitch Stark and Josh Hazlewood, who's and Pat Cummins when he's fit. We've got Adam Zampa, who's a quality spinner as well, Ash Agar. We have got the pieces that can fit together, but we just haven't found the glue to be able to bring that all together. So I hope we do. I hope I'm wrong. But as I said, going back to when you're playing against teams who've had more consistency with their team selection and everyone knows their roles under pressure, normally when the heat comes on, those teams are the ones who sort of fall across the line.
Well, you won everything there is to win in cricket. When you come into a tournament for Australia, is there a thing of like, we're Australia, and you see that from other teams. So, for instance, like I look at England's white ball setup, right, and they've got so many great players that they're far and away ahead of what Australia's white ball program is. But why do I feel like if we come into a game of the World Cup, even with all the great players they've got, it's still there's like this we imbue like this sense of dominance on a tournament just because we're wearing like the green and gold, or there's something straight across the chest and Steve Smith's batting and we think, oh yeah, we are the best team in the world, despite you look at who's actually going to play and you're like, well, that's no good. But why do I feel like when you come into a tournament for Australia, it feels like, no, we'll be okay?
Is it just fans who think that? Do players see it that way, or is it just us at home going, we're Australia, we should win?
Well, that's one part, which is a great thing, but also from a team perspective, yes, you do feel that, because the T20 World Cup, T20 World Cup, no, because Australia hasn't won it, and we made the final in 2010. We just haven't been able to nail it in the T20 World Cups. So in that perspective, not as much confidence, but across the board, absolutely. Like Australia's been so dominant across generations as well, in a way, whether it was obviously the 99, 2003, 2007, especially the 2003 and 2007 when Australia went through a World Cup undefeated in both of those, which is just, it's hard to imagine that that's actually possible to go through a World Cup undefeated. And the Aussie team did it two World Cups in a row. And then 2015, the whole sort of changing the guard happened into 2015, and Australia was able to win at home. So it shows that Australia do always have the players that can step up when the team needs to in these big knockout games. Whereas the flip side of that is South Africa, who've only won one knockout game in any ICC event ever, which is just mind-blowing considering how many incredible players that they've had. Yeah. So that confidence is it's in the environment that they know if they can bring it together. They've got players who've stepped up when the teams needed it to be able to win these ICC events. Yeah. And that's what England, because obviously they have been so dominant in white ball cricket. They won the 2019 World Cup as well and dominated. Then they're going to have that confidence going into these sort of tournaments as well, and especially with Owen Morgan, with the way he leads the team as well. When you've got a really strong, powerful leader like England do with Owen Morgan, everyone knows that at the right time, someone's going to put their hand up there, and the leader will allow that person to be able to put their hand up. So it's going to be interesting to see whether the Aussies can really pull that together. But you're absolutely right. It's not just the Aussie fans who think that. Internally, if we can bring this together, we've got the caliber of players across the board to be able to win this tournament.
It's a great drive-by in South Africa as well.
Yeah, exactly. Watto, final one from me. Just looking forward. Like obviously, there's a mega auction coming up, but what people don't realise is there's a different mega auction coming up, and that is that TGC would like to get over to India for the IPL, and we're keen to be sold to the highest bidder to join a director's box to wave a massive flag,
whatever.
So like what could we expect from a director's box? But more importantly, like when everything is opened up and the IPL's back on in India with big crowds, like what could we expect from the post-match circuit? Having been there yourself.
Okay, so with waving the flag in a director's box, it depends which franchise you're with.
Okay.
Really, if it's CSK, it's a lot more sort of low key. Mr. Srinivasan, who owns a franchise, he doesn't travel now, so it's very much more low key. Okay. Whereas you go in with like the Mumbai Indians, with the Mrs. Ambani, who's there with the sons. There's a bit more going on there. It's a bit more going on there. A bit more of the imagination. Or with KKR, with Shah Rukh Khan as well. So there's different experiences. Depends how fortunate you are to be able to get picked up in that mega auction that's coming up.
TGC just sitting at a table somewhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'll wave anything.
In regards to the circuit, well, if you're a little bit late to the dance. The first 4 years of IPL, that was very different to what it is now.
Yeah,
there was a lot of after every game there was a after parties, fashion shows, all that sort of stuff that all the players were invited to. So that's where I think some people let the off-field stuff sort of get in the way of the on-field stuff. Whereas now things have changed a lot. It's very much there's very few distractions now. So you've sort of missed the boat in that regard. But if you're with the right people, you can still have a lot of fun.
Well, there's going to be a new franchise, isn't it? Haven't the BCCI just put a tender in? So Bring back the old times, I say.
Yeah, that's right. Sort of reminds me of Steve O'Keefe when he said he's the only person who's gone to the IPL and lost money. For buying so many rounds for people. Anyway, hope he's well. That's the end of Watto's wrap, I think, on the appropriate note. So can we just say thanks so much to you, Watto, and to those out there watching. This has just been an in-kind partnership. You know, it's been forged, I think, off some trust and some friendship and some enjoyment. And I know from our end, it's been huge for us. We're very humbled to have been able to have the privilege to speak to you so many times, Watto. I think I've said it many times, but we tried to get you on the show for about 10 years. And so it's been extremely satisfying to go from never having spoken to you to speaking to you so often. So it's been enormous for us. So a huge thank you on behalf of us and the audience that you would continually join us and give us so much analysis and insight and do it so generously. So thanks so much. And so anyone who is out there who would have noticed the logo that you're wearing, head to T20stars.com if you want to truly support Shane Watson, get around him. We have been saying that he will show up at your doorstep to personally sell you cricket bats, but that's not true, and nor is it available in India. Not yet. So thank you so much, Watto, on behalf of us, honestly.
Look, I've absolutely loved it. It really is. I feel very fortunate to have this relationship with you guys. Like what you guys have been able to do and build with the grade cricket is absolutely phenomenal, and the enjoyment and entertainment that you provide us cricket tragics is incredibly cool. And I just feel very fortunate that you guys have been so open, especially now that I've finished playing as well. So I'm certainly not as I'm not as sort of intense around the whole aspect of me and the game of cricket. So I really appreciate the support that you've given me, T20 Stars as well. It's an exciting next phase of my life. So I do appreciate everything that you continue to do for me. And I'm sure there'll be plenty more coming up, hopefully in the future with what we can do together. But it's really kind words, and I really appreciate it. And I've absolutely loved it.
Just send us MS Dhoni's number now, and then we'll just get off.
He doesn't get back to messages anyway.
Well, Shane, you've said that there might be another opportunity for us. So if you don't turn up later, it's because you truly haven't responded to me, because I will hassle you for other things. So on that note, thank you so much, Shane, and for Watto's wrap. I'm sure we'll do something again later. All the best for the summer and everything else ahead.
Awesome. You too, boys. Cheers.